Welcome to Doors to Hope and Healing, an inside look at the many facets of work that is happening at the Department of Children and Families, between our staff, the families we serve, and our community partners. My name is Jaqueline Ford. I have had the honor of working for the department for almost 30 years. And although I may be familiar with many of the topics we bring to you, I have invited experts in those fields to help us dispel the myths and misconceptions that can often be barriers to our work. Join us as we open our doors and invite you to have a seat at our table. Peter, thank you so much for being on the set of Doors to Hope and Healing. We're going to talk today about a very sensitive topic, but before we do that, if you can just introduce yourself to our viewers and talk about the role that you have with our department.
Sure. So I'm Pete Yazbek. I'm the DCF of Connecticut Communications Director. So basically that means I'm a spokesman for the department. I deal with all reporters who reach out, social media. We work at DCF. We know inevitably we're going to face some very bad, incidents, but there's also a lot of positive things coming out of our department. We have, youth who are in our care and custody who are out there in the world thriving, successful. We have, families who are involved with us who are, who got back on the right path, had their families reunified. We have staff achievements like Jackie Ford, 2024, Next Star Woman of the Year.
Thank you.
So since I've got there, that's really what we've been trying to do is put a lot of positive stories out there. Today we'll be talking about a law that's available for parents that we think is a positive thing. It's something that we want parents to take advantage of. It helps families and it protects newborns.
Yeah, we absolutely. It's an important law. And I think it's great to have you on because, this show and a lot of the work that we do is trying to change the perception of how people see DCF. And when you have, your role and you have that ability to help dispel those myths and misconceptions and change the perception, people have a better understanding of the work that we're doing.
Exactly.
Can you provide an overview of what the Safe Haven Law is for anybody who may not even understand what the Safe Haven Law is?
So, sure. So 20 years ago, a state law was passed. It's called the Safe Haven Act for Newborns. It allows a parent of a newborn child, 30 days or younger, if that parent feels they can no longer safely care for their child, they can go to any hospital in the state, go to the ER, and safely surrender their child. And it's important to emphasize, and I think this is why the law works, that when the parent does so, they don't face criminal charges for abandonment and they can remain anonymous throughout the entire process.
Oh, so are there other places other than hospitals that they can leave a child?
So no. So in Connecticut, because of the age of the child, not a month, not even a month, the safest place for that child is in a emergency department where there's trained nursing staff. They know exactly what to do when they get a Safe Haven baby turned over, and they're medically trained so they can assess that baby, and then give us a call, give DCF a call, and then we take custody and place the child for adoption.
Yeah, that makes sense because the baby would then be in a safe place.
Right.
How does Connecticut's laws differ from other states?
So Connecticut's, one would be where the actual safe haven is. So some states, there's 45 states that have some form of a safe haven law. So for instance, some states allow fire departments, police departments, churches, baby boxes or Moses boxes. In Connecticut, we only allow the ER department because of what I just explained. It's the safest place for a baby who's not even a month old to be dropped off, to be medically assessed, to be cared for. All staff across, not all staff, but there are designated staff in hospitals across Connecticut who know what to do when a Safe Haven baby is dropped off to them. So in Connecticut, it is only a hospital setting. I heard an anecdote from somebody while doing this work. A baby before this law was passed, and this law was passed in response to several high-profile, pretty horrific issues or incidents of abandonment and sometimes infanticide. A baby was left at a church, so obviously the parent felt that he or she may be judged by dropping it off at the church. They dropped the baby off in the middle of the night. Temperatures dropped. Luckily, the baby survived, but had to, but when the church staff brought him to the hospital, he had to be treated for exposure. So really the important thing here is, and you're going to hear me say this a couple of times, is when it comes to our law in Connecticut, there's no blame, there's no shame, and there's no questions asked at all.
And is the parent required to hand the baby off to someone, or can they just leave it in an ER? You know, if a parent walks in and they're clearly going to be frightened and taking this step.
Again, we really want to remove any of the stigma here. This is about protecting the life and well-being of the baby. So truly, when we say that the law is as straightforward as it sounds, it's no blame, no shame, no questions asked. The staff are trained. They're not going to look at you sideways. They have seen this before. Almost every hospital across the state has seen this, and they're just going to for instance, parent would bring their child into the ER. You let staff know that you want to utilize the safe haven law. You feel like you can no longer care for your child. You'll then be taken by a trained member of the nursing staff to a private room. They will ask for the baby's medical history. They might ask you your name, personal information. You don't have to answer that. And then you'll get some information on your rights as a parent, and how to contact DCF, because obviously if you change your mind, we'd like you to have that avenue, that option as well. But keep in mind too that this process moves pretty fast. So you drop the baby off, the baby's assessed, DCF is called within 24 hours. We start to move to terminate parental rights and then place the baby in an adoptive home. A
pre-adoptive home.
Yeah.
I remember maybe 20 years ago, I had a case of a safe haven baby when I had worked as a case manager for DCF, and the baby was born in the same day as my daughter. And I remember the family being so grateful that they had this healthy baby, and I thought how courageous of that mom to be able to walk into that hospital, 2 weeks after giving birth and leave that baby. So ultimately, what is the objective of the goal of safe haven?
So basically, safe haven saves lives. It protects the child's life. Like I said, this law was a reaction to several high-profile incidents where a baby was abandoned. The baby was either in a harmful place. Sometimes harm actually came to the baby. Unfortunately, this law was created to give parents an option, a responsible option. We've seen horror stories of babies being left in dumpsters and a duffel bag at a rest stop at McDonald's. This allows parents to have a 24/7 option, no stigma attached to it, to bring your baby somewhere safe, and then walk away knowing that they have a loving adoptive home waiting for them. And another thing I should mention too is that parents who choose to use this law, we know it takes a lot of courage to raise your hand when you're struggling and ask for help, and that's why this law is here. It provides a safe, responsible alternative to possibly abandonment or something worse.
Do you know if there's education being provided to parents who are pregnant and maybe at risk of being concerned, expressing concern about how they're going to take care of this baby? Do you know if there's any education?
Well, in this job, I've talked to some medical staff specifically about this law, and I believe that if the mother expresses concern, I'm sure they do make this option known to her. Because
the OBGYN offices and the clinics, I'm sure, are very familiar with this work, so that they can do that, because that may alleviate some pressure for a mom who's thinking, I don't really think I can do this, and it's such a safe option so that child can really thrive and be adopted by a family who's able to take care of that child. Are there any age limits or criteria regarding infants about being surrendered? I know you said 30 days.
Right, so like I said, some states it's within 72 hours. In Connecticut, it's 30 days or younger. Another criteria obviously is the location. It's only any ER department across the state.
And can you speak to how long the parent has to possibly change their mind?
So like I said, the process moves pretty quickly. Once the baby is dropped off, the nursing staff will call DCF within 24 hours. And then, within 30 days, DCF is already moving to terminate parental rights and then place the baby in an adoptive home. So if you do change your mind, it should be,
quickly.
You should move quickly. You should contact the court to be appointed an attorney, and you should call DCF as well.
Right. to kind of streamline that if in
Correct.
fact you're going to change your mind.
Correct.
What measures are in place to ensure the safety and well-being of infants when they're surrendered under the safe haven law? So I know that you said that DCF is immediately called, and does DCF come out to the hospital at that point?
Eventually, yes. Eventually, yes, within 24 hours. But the fact that the handoff is happening in a hospital, in some cases, that has meant the baby got life-saving critical care that they needed.
They're in a safe place when they're in the hospital.
Correct. And you know, that care may have been delayed if the baby was handed off in a non-hospital setting or left, you know, on a step or on the step of a fire department or something.
Right.
That's where, you know, we have these specially trained ER staff. They know exactly what to do when they receive a safe haven baby. And then, you know, like I said, after receiving medical care, that baby is placed in a safe and loving home.
Yeah, it ends up being a beautiful love story, and on both parts, on the courage of the mom.
Right.
How does DCF collaborate with other organizations to raise awareness about, I know that the hospital staff are trained, but how are we creating education and cross-collaborating with other agencies?
So we promote this law on an ongoing basis throughout the year. However, in April 8th is Baby Safe Haven Day in Connecticut. It was designated that about in 2015, I believe, when Governor Malloy was in office, because of a particularly horrific incident that happened in Danbury. They wanted to raise awareness. They made April 8th Baby Safe Haven Day. And so during April, we do a big push with social media. I proactively reach out to reporters to get media coverage. That helps get the word out, social media. We've had some great partners like Lieutenant Governor Bysowitz, the Lamont administration, Pam Sawyer. She's a former state legislator. She was one of the champions of this law back in 2000 when it was passed. 20 years later, she's still involved with us. She helped me out the other day, spoke to her, this reporter asked me what was the intent of the law, and I said, I think it was in reaction to several, incidents that were happening, and they wanted an alternative for parents. And I called Pam up and said, can you jump on the phone with this reporter? And she got on the phone, and the story came out beautifully. So 20 years later, she's still actively involved. Connecticut Hospital Association, of course, their membership, they are our, partners on the front line, our safe haven partners. They have, specially trained staff. They help spread awareness to mothers and parents of newborns. And then, of course, we have adoptive parents of safe haven babies. So, our foster care division always says that our current foster parents, word of mouth from our current foster parents is the best recruiters for our prospective foster parents. And our safe haven parents are really, I think, very effective ambassadors, because they are tangible proof that these safe haven babies will end up in a safe, loving home.
And they can give the testimony, testament to the fact that the child's not taken from them and returned back to the birth parent. It's a process. It's a process that's happening.
And these are parents who are in the process of being pre-approved for adoption anyway.
So they've come forward to the department to be a resource for adoption.
Correct.
So you mentioned, what was it, Pam, the state rep, was her name?
Pam Sawyer.
Sawyer. Can you recall any stories that you can share with our viewers about an experience with a safe haven baby? I know that recently you had the opportunity to have a family interview. They couldn't be with us today because they're having a family vacation, which is wonderful.
Yes.
But can you speak to that?
Sure. So, as I mentioned, we love working with our adoptive parents of safe haven babies. Those are great ambassadors for the program. There's some families who are, understandably hesitant to be the focus of a news story. Last year, when we were doing our push during April, we had one father step forward, Casey. He and his family were in the process of becoming adoptive parents. He wanted to share his story because he wanted to let everyone know that this law works on both sides, for both sets of parents. And he just felt it was important to share his story. So basically, they were in the process of becoming adoptive parents. like I said, the safe haven process moves pretty fast. So they got a call, and he said basically overnight we became parents, but that's what we wanted. I wouldn't trade it for anything. It was a little bit of a scramble, but they, on the way to go pick up their daughter, they stopped at Target, picked up a stroller and a car seat. But Casey said it's been an amazing journey. He can't imagine not being his daughter's father. So we've heard similar things from adoptive parents, just that they want parents to know, if you're considering using this law, there is a safe and responsible alternative and a safe and loving home on the other end of things for your child.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, I hope they're having a great time on their family vacation. How does the department address any misconceptions that there may be about this whole process? Because people perception, and that's why it's so important to have you on today and to talk about these type of issues.
Right. So not so much in Connecticut, but there has been some controversy around the safe haven law in other states. The critics would say that safe haven laws make it too easy to dispose of a baby. And we would say that that's the point of the safe haven law, is that it is easy and safe, right, to relinquish your baby to a hospital staff and eventually have that baby placed in an adoptive home. So that is really the only criticism I've ever heard, is that it makes it too easy to dispose of babies. But really, what's the alternative, right? The whole point is that it is easy for the bio parents, in that what is the, for a parent that feels like they have nowhere to turn, what's the alternative, right? And we've seen worst case scenario, right?
The flight. I mean, they could, do something that ends up, in the baby not surviving. And I think that's why it's so important for Connecticut and learning more about the law, about leaving it at the hospital. Because if you could leave it at the fire department or the police department, what if no one sees that baby right away and it's on the doorstep? But the parent feels like they've done their, they were responsible because they took this step. But I think the hospital is really the safest place for that baby to be.
It's 24/7, and they have trained medical staff there.
Right. So there is no lapse in medical treatment for that child. What is your role as the Director of Communications in ensuring that the community is reminded that there is this safe haven law? Right.
So like I said, throughout the year, we educate the public on an ongoing basis. We make the big push in April because we know that there's always a group of parents who we possibly haven't reached, right? And they haven't been exposed to earlier messages about the law. So in my role, like I explained, we want to try to get proactive media coverage. So getting, fathers like Casey, like this family that we were just discussing, I think probably our most recent safe haven family. We want to, if they're comfortable, share their story in the media. Most people watch TV, listen to the radio, read the newspaper, read online. I think that's one of the best ways to get the message out. And again, we're always pushing that tagline: no blame, no shame, no questions asked. It's memorable, right? It seems trivial, but it's catchy. We hope it sticks with people, and it gets the message across. And then one other, again, may seem small, but I think it's effective. We have a brochure, a safe haven brochure. It looks like it was designed probably in the 90s, right? It has a couple photos, very dramatic photos of maybe teen moms are outside, the lighting's gray, they're looking like distressed. We decided with my colleague, our visual media designer, Liz Calabi, I don't know, I can give her a shout out.
Yeah, give her a shout out.
So because we're trying to reach a different generation of parents, we removed, all the dramatic photos, we used softer colors, blue colors, redesigned the logo, included that tagline that I just mentioned, use easy to understand language. And so all that might seem small, but at the end of the day, it's about reducing stigma. And we want, we know this is an already traumatic decision, a very difficult decision. We want to attract people and not push them away with how we're marketing this and how we're putting it out there.
Right, and I think it's so important. It may seem small, but that whole marketing and the visuals about that, because some people can see themselves in those visuals, and to have remade that document so that it could be seen by more people in different audience, I think is a great idea. So how can members of the public get involved or support to ensure that others know about the safe haven?
So we can never have enough, education around the law. It's over 20 years old, but we believe that it works how it was intended to work. We just ask everybody, medical personnel, our media partners, every member of the community, really, just to keep, spreading the word that this option exists and it saves lives. And we can also, we would love if our promotional materials, the brochure that I just mentioned, is shared far and wide, and folks can go on to portal.ct.gov/DCF and go to our Safe Haven page to find that.
That's wonderful. Yeah, and I think that, in this wonderful audience that we have watching our show, you've reached more people, and then they can tell their communities and their, friends and neighbors that this law exists, because oftentimes people don't know. And like I said before we went on set, we know this work and we know what the laws are and what the procedures and the issues that are affecting our families are, but we live and breathe that work. So it's always important to tell our neighbors, our communities about all of this
That's
work.
what I discovered when I came to DCF is I don't know what I don't know. So, you and Ken and the rest of the department have really been great, mentors and teachers. And the same goes for, something like this where it's part of our everyday, but it might seem
culture.
Exactly.
It's a culture, and when you come into the agency from the outside, you're enlightened on so many things that the agency is doing that you probably didn't even know.
All the positive stories that are coming out of DCF, I knew, because we do Spotlight on What's Right. And if folks out there don't know what that is, please sign up for our
newsletter.
But there's so many great stories coming out that deserve recognition, and then there's so many positive resources for parents that we need to make known so people can take advantage of those resources.
So, just in general, it's destigmatizing the work. It's lowering that, reducing the stigma so that families will come forward, or people will refer their families to get the support from us.
Right.
Before we close today, what advice would you give to another state or jurisdiction about the Safe Haven law? It seems like it's a no-brainer, but I know that, sometimes it's hard to shift mindset.
Right. So like I mentioned, we have 45 other states who have some form of the Safe Haven law. It varies from state to state, but I think in doing this work, speaking to advocates, medical professionals, Pam Sawyer, the champion of the law, I think designating hospital ERs as the safe haven, I think that's the most important, right? It's because of the young age of the baby, we just want to ensure that the baby is safely dropped off with medical staff somewhere that's being staffed 24/7. I would say that the designation of hospitals as a safe haven is probably the most important from what I understand of the work.
Yeah, I agree. Well, that's great advice. So before we close, just let us know the website address again.
Of course. So it's portal.ct.gov/DCF. And I just want to, want to repeat, no blame, no shame, no questions asked. So if you're a parent of a newborn, you feel like you have nowhere to turn, please know that the Safe Haven gives you that option. You can remain anonymous. And then on the other end of things, I would just want to plug for those folks considering becoming a foster or adoptive parent, I would ask them please visit ctfosters.com.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for watching this segment of Doors to Hope and Healing. If you would like more information about the Safe Haven law, you can visit our website. And if you're interested in fostering or adopting a Connecticut child, you can call 1-888-KID-HERO or visit us on the web. Thank you for watching.
The water's warm at Jaws Pond, and we're stocked full of treasures. Big or small, we buy it all. We buy and sell fast rides, power tools, vintage guitars, and so much more. Walk the plank in style with our fine jewelry, diamonds, and watches. Plus, we have a huge selection of the latest video games, including the new PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. Jaws Pond, conveniently located on Meriden Waterbury Turnpike in Southington and West Main Street in New Britain.
I'm your host, host, Kurt Barwis. Today, I have a very special guest, Dr. Andrew Lynn.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Veterans Corner. My name's Chuck Wooden.
Decision for ourselves for this week, if we want to be made well.
Hi, welcome to the crack of dawn. It's Dawn Lombardi. I'm starting the painting. It's going to be the clips with some water. Love it.
He took me on the sets of Lost in Space, Batman.
Everybody has a story. What's yours? Until next time,